Thank you, Wycliffe Gori, for that. And indeed, Kenya continues to watch Good Morning Kenya, the only way to start your day, which is coming to you live from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. My name is Samuel Njoroge. On Politics begins right now. It's a Monday, and it's always a pleasure to be looking into some of the issues that are shaping the political front in this country. I usually never do this alone. We've got resident panelists who help us understand the issues. To my right, I've got Danstan Omari. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, and welcome to my territory.
We'll get there
in
a short while. And of course, to my left here, today it's not extreme, it's just my left. We've got Joseph Simekha, who is back.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be back, and good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
We keep it at that?
Yeah, well, if you want me to talk about where I've been, I will.
Yes, please.
Yes. I've been away for a bit on a work mission in Tanzania. You know, Tanzania was going through an election, going through a transition. Now we have a new president there. Ndugu Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete has gone out. Now we have Ndugu John Joseph Pombe Magufuli, who is rattling people all over in Dar es Salaam. So anyhow, we were, the team from an organization that I work for was part of what was happening in Tanzania. And for us, because we have governance and political programs there, I had to be there.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you very much.
And welcome. Karibu Kenya.
Asante sana.
Karibu Kenya. Omari, there has been a lot happening on the political front, but we shall be delving or looking into some of the key highlights. 62% of Kenyans, according to Infotrack survey, feel the country is headed in the wrong direction. Before we even answer that question, whether it's headed in the wrong direction or not, do we place too much faith in poll surveys in this country? Do they actually reflect the reality on the ground?
Well, first and foremost, before I respond to that, I must appreciate that thanks for KBC to come to host this function at the prestigious University of Catholic. You've seen how the facilities we have, and you've seen how courteous and gentlemen we are.
Wow.
Thanks, and KBC, welcome to our university. It only happens that I'm a law lecturer at this university, so I really have got to.
You had to do that one.
I've got to praise where I work, boss. This is the university of choice.
I hope the Vice Chancellor is watching.
And you realize I'm not interjecting. As much as I should,
anyway,
I'm not interjecting.
Yeah.
But, Omari,
but definitely the public will see the difference between us and the other universities.
Now,
let me come to
the
issues that we are dealing with. First and foremost, perceptions. Is the 62% a perception? Remember, pollsters are polled all over every other time that Raila will be leading. And when the results are announced by IBC, Raila trails. Do we need really to believe on this? This really, as I've told you, and I've said this severally, Kenyans do not vote based on development. Kenyans do not vote based on what are the issues on the ground. Come 2017, Kenyans will be voting based on their ethnicity and on whatever they think that their tribal chiefs are eating. So really, these things about polling stars, results coming out, do not matter here. What they matter is in the US, where the results about Trump and Hillary Clinton will matter. But in this country, all those things are purely politically motivated. They will not change the results 2017.
No bearing at the end of the day, really?
No, well, I hold a different opinion. I believe that this country has grown in terms of professionalism in social polling. I believe that companies that do social polling like Infotrack and Ipsos actually do use scientific methods in doing this, carrying out these social polls. But what I agree on is that sometimes such a poll may not reflect the actual truth, because as Omari says, it's based a lot on perception and on the sincerity and honesty of the respondents. We know ourselves as Africans. So, someone approaches you and asks you, if we were to have an election today, who between the two of these people would you vote for? Sometimes a lot of people are very cautious. They try to imagine what you may want to hear,
right,
and that may be what they respond. So in terms of that, there's always issues about errors. Margin of error may be higher than the scientific margin of error that is normally given.
Yeah.
But to me, that does not discredit the importance and relevance of social polling. That I think they do reflect something in society. So for me, if you look at the most current, the one that says about 62% of Kenyans are unhappy with the direction the country is going, it pretty much reflects the talk I hear on the streets, in bars, in restaurants, in everywhere in this country, in matatus, in taxis. It is the talk I hear all over in Kenya. People are not happy. And this one is not, for me, based on any political persuasion. It doesn't matter to me whether it's Jubilee or CORD people or Amani Congress people. The general, ordinary Kenyan on the street, a lot of talk I hear is people who are not happy about what is happening in the country.
People are not happy. Yeah. And if, for example, fine, we may not care about it, as Omari says, why then would we have so many people reacting to the poll, especially politicians?
Well, first and foremost, you'll see, Sammy, that the polls were conducted majorly in cities and in towns. My friend has just come from Tanzania. If you walk to all the towns in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, Arusha, all over, the talk was Lowassa. But in the village, people still strongly believe in CCM. So are these polls really targeting the people who vote? Most of these polls are targeting the people who read newspapers, who watch TVs and the issue. My view is that as the Kenyans appear to be agitated, there is the big elephant in the house. When it comes to the elections, the question that has always been there is between if it is Raila going to contest and if it is Uhuru contesting, issues do not matter. Mm-hmm. People forget really issues. They might not have eaten bread for the last 1 year, but once it is the two people on the ballot box, they will vote according to their ethnic conclaves. So my view is that the polls are right, but they are right just to inform the public and just to inform the government that people are annoyed. But that annoyance does not translate to loss of votes or to gaining of votes. So to me, it's, this being a university, I'll call it that it is really an academic exercise because those polls do not translate to a government being thrown out of office or to a government coming to power.
Let's talk about the fact that it's being done in cities. Back there, in the rural areas,
yes.
Mashinani,
yes.
they take voting religiously. Quite
yes.
literally, they
yes.
will wake up at 4 to go vote.
Yes.
But there has been a feel that the middle class ignores that exercise for one reason or another.
Yes.
Right? So come a poll that is being, the sampling is being done from a city. Can you really ignore that, Simekha?
No, I don't think you can ignore the fact that the sampling was being done in cities or in urban areas, mm-hmm. because again, it is where people are more expressive, more bold to even respond to questions from strangers. Mm-hmm. In rural areas, in our communities, people are a bit more cautious, right. responding to strangers and so on. So I would still insist that the poll, with give and take, will still generally reflect, be a true reflection of the view on the streets, as one may put it. Mm-hmm. Now, whether that translates into political support or loss of political support, I think is another argument. It's a different argument. It does not invalidate yes. the authenticity of a poll.
Of a poll.
Yes. And so for me, I would want us to have, separate those two arguments. Mm-hmm. And this is unfortunate in our country because a lot of things now are almost always seen in the prism of that political divide. Talk about ICC, talk about the price of bread, talk about public debt. The moment you begin to discuss something like that, people begin to attack you. No, Uhuru Kenyatta is doing very well. Oh, Raila Odinga is doing. Come on, we're talking about public debt, not about these two guys. So I think it's important for this kind of debate that you separate. You say, okay, whereas I will agree that this poll may not have any bearing, in fact, on political persuasion or otherwise, can we just talk about the poll and whether it reflects a true sense of what is happening in the country, mm-hmm. or the sentiment, rather, on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
If for one time I may have a chance to hold opinion on this show,
yes.
the 50%, the threshold is 50%
yes.
plus one.
Plus
no,
one.
the 50% is in the rural areas, but yes. the plus one is in the cities. I believe the middle class hold the plus one. At the end of the day,
what
Omari.
Really the issue is that do the middle class have an interest in politics? They have an interest in politics, but they've learned that in 1992, they fought, they lost. In 1997, they voted and they lost. In 2002, they voted and lost. In 2007, they voted and lost. In 2013, they voted and lost. Are they again going to lose in 2017? Most guys have developed anarchy and they have said, really, there is lethargy. There is no need to waste our time. Let us concentrate on the economy. And still that economy is not doing very well, but still they have nothing to do. So the 50+1 vote, to me, I hold that in the rural villages, they constitute almost 70% of the voting machinery. Most of the middle-class guys will be busy driving their Range Rover Sport and watching analysis, KBC, On Politics, who is likely to win, who is gaining here. So really what we are seeing is that there is a lot of disillusionment. There is a lot of people feeling that really my vote does not matter. How does it not matter? People voted, people fought their battles. And you see, let me give you a very good example. A middle class, you are talking of the middle class. The late senior counsel, Mutula Kilonzo, when he was being voted in, his daughter, my senior Keith Kilonzo, did not vote for her, for his father. That tells you that it is only the children of the poor who will vote. It is only the villagers who will vote. As Sami and Simekha will be busy analyzing the results of elections. So opinion polls depict the reality of perceptions, but there is no connection between the opinion poll and the voting. Those two things are too different, so that we need to have another parameter to measure the voting, because the opinion poll seems to be measuring perceptions. Reality, when the IBC announces the results, is different. Do we develop another tool? Will Infotrack, will IPSO develop a new tool to measure electability of the people who are being elected?
And I guess then the next issue shall be talking about the reality of perception.
Yes.
You know, when you put reality and perception on the same page. Simekha, coming to you, two issues I will highlight from what Infotrack talked about. Is the issue of corruption that we've really spoken about on Politics, but let's talk about the Jubilee Manifesto. And there is a feel, according to Infotrack, that Jubilee has under-delivered on its manifesto. My question is it that this manifesto was too ambitious, or it just has people behind it who are not working and are sleeping on the job?
Maybe both. Anyhow, first of all, let me talk about a colleague. Kathy Kilonzo is a colleague, and as you know,
it's my senior.
Yes, and you know the principle we believe in of fairness and everyone being given a chance. But since she's not here, I think I have an inkling that I could talk for her. That the father was standing for election in Makueni, isn't it? Yes. As a senator. Kathy Kilonzo's interests are in Nairobi majorly. Well, she does have some interest in Makueni, but her major interests are in Nairobi. So she really doesn't have any obligation to go and register and vote in Makueni.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day. She could, just like my son, my interests are elsewhere in Western Kenya. I'm not surprised when, you know, for him, it's Nairobi. So let's be fair to her on that one.
Right.
Anyhow, you were asking me about Jubilee and the manifesto.
The manifesto.
First of all,
was it too ambitious? Or do we have people behind it who are sleeping on the job?
Maybe the question we should be asking is, did they, in the first place, have any intention of doing those things they said they would do? They put in the manifesto. Or was that just to win votes, to show people that, you know, we will be different? Where are the laptops, for example? How many kilometers of tarmac do we have? Has the cost of power come down? Has public debt come down? In fact, it has skyrocketed, and many other things I could talk about it. Do we have really an objective, non-partisan government, you know, a non-political government? Yes, we do have guys who are taken from outside of the political class, except for 3, I think, who had to be thrown in. But really, are they projecting what Jubilee told us? There's a myriad things you could talk of, and for me the question becomes, goodness, did they actually intend to do these things they were telling us they would do? So that is one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is there's a lot of incompetent people in government just now, unfortunately. There's been commentary all over. This is my personal opinion. There's a lot of incompetence in this government, and that is why we are seeing that they can hardly deliver on any of the things they said they would deliver on.
Then,
If there's any things they're succeeding on in terms of the competition within government, it's probably the wrong things. That's why we have all these scandals flying. I think maybe there's some competition. Who can come up with the worst scandal in government? Don't worry, I won't go into details.
Please, I'm actually waiting.
Don't worry.
Do you share the same view, Omari?
I totally disagree with my friend.
Yes.
Reason being that, one, I want us to contextualize the issues of this government. 2010, a new constitution comes into place, creating serious structural demolitions and reinstatement of a governance structure. 2013, Jubilee comes to power. Jubilee moves away to have a manifesto that is totally transformative on doing things totally different from what the other governments have been doing. We have a mindset that things must go the way they have been doing. What is ailing Jubilee is the failure to provide explanatory processes. Jubilee has failed to develop a government spokesman, a person who coordinates the issues. Remember, under the old regime, there were the chief, the Modaoras, the Nyachais, and the Karedis, the people were in control. Under this new executive type of government, there is no really one centralized power in terms of bureaucracy of the public service. And that is why you are seeing Mangiti saying this, you are seeing so-and-so saying this. So this is one problem that the Constitution has not been internalized properly. Two, Jubilee seems to have failed to tell the people that in order for them to go to Canaan, they must belt up their belts. This is the only thing I blame Jubilee, that they did not forewarn people that what we are going to do, we are going to overborrow for us to have development. What used to be there in the previous governments for 50 years was sustaining a status quo. No serious transformation, nothing was there. Now we are moving to the Asian tiger approach that we need the railway. What will that mean? Me and Simekha must be ready to sacrifice. What now we are seeing is that sacrifice. We do not expect the results to come today. The type of capital investment these two guys are dealing will take time before the results are out. That is what is failing. Alfred Mutua, hate him or love him, he did a very tremendous job in Serikali ya Nusu Mkate. He was telling people what is happening. What we do not have, and I'm asking, where is your colleague Manoa Esipisu? He's not telling the people that expect this, other than when it only comes to the El Nino. That's when they tell us that the rains are going to come, and these are the likely consequences. So if there was a proper explanatory process, that could be a way to deal with these issues that we have. Said and done, have Jubilee succeeded tremendously. Jubilee's success seems to have been overcrowded, one, because of some arrogance. There was some arrogance in terms of that they thought that it was a winner takes it all. Remember, CORD was asking for a dialogue. It was dismissed. We need a national dialogue. The failure to include people has given the CORD so much mileage to the effect that all the gains that Jubilee has done are being erased one by one.
But then again, Omari, issues, arrogance aside, whether it is there, dialogue, whether it will happen aside, the belting up issue, the sacrifices that you're talking about, are they the mega scams that we're seeing of worth millions and millions? Is that what belting up is all about, Simekha?
I wonder.
And I'm not taking sides here.
It's true.
I'm seeking clarification on an important issue.
Yes.
Are those the belting up issues that we should brace for as Kenyans?
In fact, what is to me interesting on the show is that my brother Omari said he disagrees with me fundamentally. But in his arguments, they back up my position.
But
if all Omari has described is not incompetence, then what is incompetence? If you cannot persuade the public to be with you, if you don't know how to coordinate government, if you don't know how to speak in sync, the government ministries can't speak in sync, if you do not know how to show people that you have actually delivered, to build on your gains, if you don't know how to deal with the opposition, what is that if not incompetence? It's absolute incompetence. Manoa Esipisu, by the way, doesn't speak for Jubilee. He speaks for the president, the presidency.
Exactly.
Actually, the president, because the presidency is something else.
the
presidency includes Samuel Ruto. He speaks for the president. So let's I think,
yes,
again, be fair with
Manoa.
Yeah, on Manoa, he doesn't speak for Jubilee. You are asking, all these mega scams we are seeing.
Is that the sacrifice?
Are those the sacrifices? Well, maybe for us, Wananchi, that we have to sacrifice and allow Nkaiseri and his ministry to spend those billions and shut up, because if we talk about it, we are threatening national security. That we must allow things to happen in National Youth Service the way they're happening, or at least the way we are being told.
They're happening.
Well, not just by journalists, but by the custodians themselves. They're acknowledging.
They're blowing whistles.
They're actually blowing whistles themselves. So it's not hearsay that I'm talking about. And many other government departments. You can actually see through this that it's only ordinary Wananchi like teachers who are sacrificing. So that people who feel like they have the reins of power and they must benefit from this power must make you sacrifice so that they benefit. Must make you sacrifice through intention and through their incompetence so that they individually can benefit. And this is the thing, is why we are getting these perceptions from the public that the country is going in the wrong direction. When you hear about all these scams, you must get really frightened. And not in one sector, not just in the financial services sector, in education sector, in social services, in health. I mean, is there any sector in this country we've not had a crisis, honestly?
And indeed, you know, when you tell people the cost of living is going up and they are largely unemployed, and then anyone chooses to peg that on the perception that that is because of corruption, you know, they will believe it. And these are the same people who are voting for you. But we need to move on from this issue and look at Uasin Gishu. I can see Omari really wants to say something. Your body language indicates that you
only
really
one
want
point.
to say
Only one
something.
point.
Yeah, okay.
What I'm
Fair
saying,
enough.
unlike the old constitutional dispensation, when the president was an imperial presidency, I want Kenyans to appreciate that we have a lame duck president where power has been decentralized to very critical organs. Are the organs that are mandated to do what we are making noise, doing their work? Has the Anti-Corruption Commission acted within its mandate? Has the Commission for Implementation of the Constitution ensured proper laws have been done? Has the Director of Public Prosecution done his job? Has the Inspector General taken his job? And you see him with the Nkaiseri there, you wonder, who is really in charge? Who? So the question that we have is that we have public officers appointed to very critical constitutional offices who still have that mindset, the old mindset, but they are looking at Raisi to Saidie. The president sometimes is totally helpless. So what Amonde is saying is that what has Wanjiku done to ensure that this constitution is implemented? What has Wanjiku done to file a petition to Parliament to remove those guys who are supposed to investigate corruption? We are simply not doing anything.
That, Omari, we can handle when we're bringing this to a close.
Yes.
As we're giving our points as we summarize.
Yes.
But let's head to Uasin Gishu, and the president was there yesterday.
Yes.
This is one of the areas where I just asked the question, your take on Uasin Gishu yesterday.
The president goofed one, and I've said this properly, whoever attacks the ICC, I'm a lawyer, I'm a lecturer here teaching law, and my students must be watching. You do not attack a judge. The president is preoccupied with his re-election of 2017. He has failed to understand, or he has failed to see that his body language and his rhetoric against the ICC is completely taking his deputy to prison. Two, he's now saying that let the foreign embassies deal with issues in Syria. Is the president's body language telling us more than it is? Are we likely to see only 10 MPs being cleared to go to The Hague? Remember, the 11 Western nations have said we are going to issue visa restrictions. And the way it operates, until you put your passport on the desk of the immigration officer in their embassies, you do not know that you are bad.
Yeah.
So once we know who will be bad, that could be a serious issue. Is Ruto going to be the first casualty not to be allowed to travel? Are we likely to see the same structural adjustment programs that were there coming into place. That message was a president who had panicked because he knows so much what the Western countries are likely to do.
Exactly, in terms of what the envoys said
Yes.
on Friday.
Yes.
On Friday. Simekha, help me identify how many MPs from the Rift accompanied the president.
From the Rift Valley, there was another function at which several...
Either way, help me identify how many were there in Uasin-Gishu yesterday.
Well, a minimal number, because I didn't count, as compared to what has previously happened. But I think your question is a pregnant question. Your request is very, very pregnant.
We know it's leading. For lawyers, it's a leading question.
Yes, no, I will help you to midwife that.
I'm learning from the best. I have lawyers in the room.
I will help you to midwife that request.
Go ahead.
The discontent has been there, is still there. The president can say as much as he wants, visit all areas of the Rift Valley, but for as long as in the perception of certain stakeholders in that region, he has not dealt with the issues they think he has the power to deal with, nothing is going to change. The disaffection will remain, and they will continue drifting away. Incidentally, it's a mix, because there's a group of them who believe he has shortchanged them, I mean shortchanged Ruto and URP and those who stood for that. But there's a group who totally believed, actually a large group, totally rightfully so, believed in devolution, looking especially at historical issues.
Right.
And believed that he would support and ensure that devolution works, so that Rift Valley people can make decisions for themselves, for their own development. And they see the clawback and they're unhappy. So when you get a potent mix of these two things, you will continue seeing the discontent. You will continue seeing the fear that if we collapse as URP and merge with whoever else, doesn't matter the name, even if you change the name and call it something else, that fear will still remain amongst the people in the Rift Valley. So again, for me, just another show of incompetence. I wouldn't even say that he was goofing. I would say it is us Kenyans who goofed in 2012, 2013, by believing these two people.
Omari, your take on the same. How many legislators were there from Uasin-Gishu, and does that send a certain message, politically speaking?
Let me tell you, the message is loud and clear. URP is only appearing to be with the president. They are not. That is a definite decision. And the president, by him appearing also to be with them, he's sending tentacles outside. The president was in Western. The president, the other 3 weeks we discussed about the Wetangula issue.
Yes.
And my position was that Wetangula will be forced to go back to join the president in his campaign. The president has put a serious onslaught in Bungoma. The president is heading to Guseland, where I come from, in Nyamira, very soon. He is targeting the same basket that Kibaki targeted. URP might be in case we will be together. Then that is fine. You've seen all of a sudden a man called Arapumi Bey. He's landing in Bomet, that is Raila Odinga, and he's getting audience. Are we likely to see a new realignment where Raila and Ruto are joining forces? The URP are demanding on what the president has the power to do. Reinstate Chirchir, reinstate Koskei, reinstate Kaitanyi and the others. So really what they are saying, this is not the ICC issue. This, you are the appointing authority of ministers. Why don't you appoint these people? The president is dilly-dally. Is the president keeping those positions in case URP bolts? He gets people from areas that are likely to vote for him, right, and appoint them. So what that body language of the MPs not present, and the president made the 5 governors of Western Province, tells you a lot, that the president might be slowly courting a new constituency, right, in case URP disappears.
That he chose to look into the ICC issue and said, I will do all it takes to ensure that my brother, that is the Deputy President William Ruto, I'm quoting verbatim,
yes, it's true,
that is off the ICC, and one of the ways that can be achieved is through the Assembly of State Parties, which begins this week.
On Wednesday.
On Wednesday. Simekha, coming to you, I know I did ask you this question, what options the government has in terms of the ASP this week. I'll give Simekha to answer the same question, what options the government has during the Assembly of State Parties to rescue Ruto, if there are any chances to do that.
I think the options they have, they've already thrown them on the table unless there's something still hidden. And one is the petition to, for the ICC to kind of go through a review of the methods they've used. One, to identify witnesses, and two, to collect evidence. That they hope that if we have an independent UN-backed review, that it may discredit the ICC. It may show that, no, they didn't go about it. The Office of the Prosecutor, OTP, did not go about it the right way. They have that option. They've said they're going to use it. Actually, they've already given that petition. Yes. It's one of the things that will be discussed. The second petition is on the rule, the famous
Rule 68.
Rule 68.
Yes.
Which they hope again that they can go and make an argument that it was not supposed to take effect retroactively. That it should have taken effect from that time going forward, and not for a case that was already in the process, like William Ruto's. The second option that I've just talked about of Rule 68, I am one of those people who are persuaded that is pretty much a judicial issue. That once certain rules have been made, because this is a rule of procedure. This is a rule of procedure. It's not some new law that has come up and then you are saying you can't prosecute me under this law because that crime did not exist before this law came into place. For me, I'm one of those who are persuaded it's a rule of procedure, and it is best left to judicial officers to interpret as they do with rules of procedure and apply it. Anyhow, let us see, as somebody argued actually, I forget who I read arguing, that let's suppose we have such a controversy on a rule of procedure in our courts of law in Kenya. Will we say, let's go back to parliament and argue about this rule? No. It's the courts that deal with it. You leave the courts to deal with it.
The interpretation.
And you may actually have a correct argument. You may actually have a substantive, winnable, if you like, arguable argument. Take it to the courts. Argue that with the courts. So that second option, I don't know. It's a very lame duck one. The first option, appealing to the UN, you saw the signals from the Security Council the first time they appealed for a deferral. I don't think anything has changed. So for me, the government's options are so limited, and for me, hence the venom directed at civil society.
And that is where we are headed, and that is what I'm coming to you, Omari, in terms of civil society.
Yes.
This seeming, tough between civil society and the political class, are we likely to see it play out during the Assembly of State Parties?
Well, first and foremost, let me respond to his issue about the ASP and what it is. Rule 68. Sammy, you look behind here, this is the library for law. All these are library law books. No library book here of law talks about retroactivity of a law. All these laws that we teach students here and worldwide, you cannot pass a law today and use it backwards. So when we get Rule 68 coming into play, really not even a first-year student that we admitted 3 weeks ago, who doesn't know that you do not make laws and make them to apply backwards. So Rule 68 does not conform to any known law worldwide, neither the common law, nor the civil law, nor even traditional approaches. The law must be in place before something is declared an illegality. Where I find a doublespeak in the question of the civil society is, one, the civil society are pushing that law should be applied. The civil society should be protecting rights and freedoms of everybody. But when it comes to Ruto and Sang, they have been sucked into the game. Imagine the civil society coming to Kenya and pushing for a law that we can use recanted evidence in our courts in this country. That will be a civil society that totally has lost a bearing. So let us have a civil society that stands for the universally accepted principles of criminal law. But let us not have a civil society, but is selective. So my take is that the civil society have lost direction. If they were standing for the rights of the victims and what they purport to stand for, it does not matter You do not need to jail somebody because victims were there. Jail the culprit. If Ruto and Sang are not the perpetrators of the offense, you do not need to hold them. Get the really perpetrators.
But then again,
what we are missing, Sammy, here is a question of, are we talking about victims to sacrifice people who are innocent?
Omari, back to my question.
Yes.
Is this staff that is currently here in the country, likely to play out at the ASP?
Very well. And I'm telling you, it is going to be hectic because the political class, you remember this time, they are not going as CORD and they are going as Kenyan parliament. For once, they are moving in as a nation. Two, they are meeting their brothers who are civil society. The civil society is saying these people must be prosecuted. The brothers from parliament are saying this law is unconstitutional and unprocedural. We are going to battle ourselves, Kenyans to Kenyans. What do you expect?
ASP.
What do you expect the international community to do?
We clean our dirty linen
Very well.
on a global platform.
Yes.
Doesn't that compromise the one voice in fighting for Ruto and Sang?
Well, but first of all, just a quick one on what my brother has talked about. I should also hope that your first-year students know the difference between law and rules of procedure. Because Rule 68 is not a law. It's a rule of procedure.
Let me help him.
Let him finish. Omari.
Are the midwives to substantive laws.
That granted.
They are part and parcel of the legal norms. You cannot isolate them. They are not political rules.
That granted.
Well.
Let him have his chance.
Let me have my time, yeah. So let me come to what is happening in the country, in civil society and the political class, and which is spilling to the Hague. And we will see it this week, as you rightly put it, Omari, at the ASP. Because there's a lot of intellectual rigor going on in terms of actualizing, operationalizing, and bettering the ICC from civil society, not just Kenyan civil society, it's all over international civil society. When arguments from civil society do not seem to favor certain interests of the political class in the country, of course, they will come out and attack civil society and say these people are selling the country and so on and so forth. But to me, intellectually, give and take, we have all over this country, political class, civil society, we have people who are not sincere. We have people who make mistakes. We have people who pursue their personal interests. But overall, civil society has been very consistent in terms of the need to let institutions do their work. They need not to interfere with the institutions. They need to support institutions regardless of whom those institutions are holding to account. So for now, I refuse to look at ICC with the narrow lenses that it's prosecuting just 2 Kenyans. Civil society engages with ICC not just on the basis of the 2 Kenyan cases, but engages with ICC generally. I know that there's, for example, in Africa, a civil society coalition called the Coalition for Support for ICC. It's not just about the 2 cases. But unfortunately, people in our country tend to interpret what civil society says, not everybody, some people, from the point of view of the 2 Kenyan cases. And where civil society's position does not favor those who look at it that way, they attack civil society. Government has had a lot of time between the last ASP conference and the current one to engage with civil society if it was unhappy. And government has a right to be unhappy with civil society. It has a right. Or the political class has a right to be unhappy where they feel their interests are threatened. But they've had all this time to engage with civil society, to host meetings. Gideon Muigai, who has many friends in civil society, could have helped government, advised government, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, let us convene meetings here and talk to these people. They are Kenyans. Let's see where we agree. Let's see what are the principles of law where it doesn't matter what you say, it will remain a principle of law. Let's see where your interests are threatened and whether these people are being selfish and deliberately malicious, or they are just pushing a principle and it happens to collide with your interests. Gideon Muigai and the others who could have done that have failed to do that. Then suddenly they've realized, oh my God, ASP is coming. ICJ, I don't know, and other civil society organizations are there and they take this position. And suddenly Duale begins to throw stones and daggers.
So isn't that a concern, Omari, that we are hardly proactive as a nation when it comes to laying of strategies, even with the ICC case?
I will confirm that one. For the first time, we'll agree with my friend. But Jubilee lacks proactive people. Jubilee lacks people who see far. Jubilee is made up of people reactionaries, people who are not fighting to see that what they want to achieve, they have started their plan today. If you look at the Duales, and those are the people you really depend to advise the president when disaster is in the making, my take could be that the civil society, as much as it is dancing to the tunes of the donors, it needs to be engaged, and be engaged in a very structured manner. Yeah. We have been knowing that the meeting is starting on 18th, and we had the last meeting in November last year. We've been quiet. All of a sudden is when we are discovering that these guys at Denis are going to cause problems to us. Let me take you to this guy who was jailed last year, the Congo warlord. Nobody raised an issue. People stood as a nation. And the guy has only served, I don't know, some few months, and is going to be released.
Yes.
Because the question of a citizen standing trial in a foreign country cannot be tolerated by any Kenyan worthy soul. If a Kenyan has committed an offense, let him be tried by Mutunga here. But once we are allowing our citizens to be tried there, and especially the deputy president of this country, we are saying that this country is a banana country.
But aren't you the same people who say don't be vague?
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
The fact that we were saying let us go to Hague is an indictment on the Kenyan public. Everybody looks at us and says, look, these are the people saying let us not be vague. Let's go to Hague. When the Hague comes, now we are saying, no, this is wrong. Can this country, and my position has been, can this country now start to rethink on what is Kenyan and what we can die for? You've seen how the guys in France have died with their own country. They are there for it. They are fighting for their country. They are proud of their country. But you'll be surprised. From 18th to the whole week, it will be the whole Kenyan soap opera of what we are doing, what we have done, abusing each other, and take the same KQ flight back to Nairobi.
Telemundo presents Joseph, coming to you. The mere fact that as a nation we may lack to do much, but then lay a lot of investment on foreign relations. Yes. Like, for example, I had the president say, our brothers, you know, our friends in other nations to stand with us during this time. Has it come to a point as a nation whereby we've got to rethink some of these bonds that we have with some of this nation and some of these notions that we are friends and we've got each other's backs?
Well, nations have to build relationships. Governments and nations have to build relationships with other governments and nations for the sake of humanity.
Based on?
Yes.
Based on trust and goodwill or based on interest?
No. Well, even interests play a role. It becomes unfortunate when those interests are narrowed to those of the ruling elite or to those in charge of government at that time. Ideally, it should be the interest of the nation. Me, I refuse to reduce the predicament of the deputy president, rather to magnify the predicament, the unfortunate, actually, predicament of the deputy president into a national interest. The deputy president was taken, rather William Samoei Ruto was taken to The Hague as William Samoei Ruto, not as the deputy president. So I'm one of those who refuse that this is not my problem. But going forward, as Omari rightly says, I would like us to think as Kenyans, how can we make and as Africans, how can we please make our institutions work as independent, competent institutions so that we never have any of our citizens being taken to any foreign court out there? And that is going forward. Yet we are still undermining, the very same people who are complaining, we are still undermining other institutions in this country. So that I disagree with them. When the president talks about our friends who are standing with us, to me, obviously, he means the Musevenis of this world, the Paul Kagames and others on this continent who would rather that they will support Kenya, whatever Kenya says. Because they know that when the Nkurunzinsas of this world, when their time comes, Kenya will either support openly or keep quiet when they're killing their people. And those people who are dying in Burundi are the same as you and I and Omari. I believe if just one president, just to give us an example, had stood and said, no, my brother, you are my brother, you don't do that, Burundi would not be going where it's headed now. And I believe that president, better than any other president in this region, is Uhuru Kenyatta. That he had the best chance to tell Nkurunziza, you are my brother. Please do not do that. Don't take that country where you want to take it. And if he had stood firm. But to me, he appears to be like, oh, let me keep quiet and look the other side.
But he was part of the talk.
Yes, well, what did it yield?
We do not know what went in those boardrooms.
Yes, what did it yield? So my argument is, unfortunately, instead of country-to-country relations, nation-to-nation relations, really being based on the interests of the people, are based on the interests of a minority elite that holds political and economic power in these countries.
Absolutely.
And then we keep saying that our brother nation, it's not our brother nation, it's my brother Museveni, it's my brother Nkurunziza. That really is my brother Mugabe. And I refuse that this country, we must put our political leaders to account so that they can truly represent the interests of the ordinary Kenyans, to Burundi, to Rwanda, to US, to UK.
So in other words, the level of analysis is not on an office basis, it's on an individual basis.
It's on an individual basis. Even when we abuse the UK and the US, 1 minute we are happy when they do something. When Obama comes here and we are in the limelight and he says something about the opposition, we are very happy. Our brother Obama. But the moment he goes on the other principles and he becomes critical, we begin to insult them.
These people
and
from
say
the
how
West.
we will not sign those security contracts and so on. I mean, we need to be consistent. All I'm saying, we must be consistent.
We must be consistent.
Yes.
In 30 seconds, Omari, your final word.
My final word is this. Is the ICC unfairly targeting Africans? I stand by that position. Why do I say this? There is a double speak. There is a double speak on how we deal with these people. Our brothers have been hit with a serious attack, 7 attacks of terrorists in France. Are we going to have travel advisories in France? Nothing. It is a challenge. But when one terrorist attack hits Sicily, travel advisories go up. So that's what we are saying. Is the ICC only an item for war in Africa? What is happening in Syria? The president raised it very well. Are we not really giving ourselves our sovereignty to other foreigners? When it is them, they protect themselves. What is wrong with Museveni protecting Uhuru? But the same way Obama is ready to protect Holland of France. That's the only issue that we are saying.
That's your argument, but honestly, we took ourselves there. We are the people, Omari, even as we bring this to a close. Simekha, I know you have a parting shot in 30 seconds. We are the same people who said, don't be vague. We are the people who surrendered that sovereignty. Unfortunately, choices do have consequences.
Sami, let me
this
finish
is the point you say, okay?
Yes.
This was a choice Kenyans made,
yes.
All right? The belt is beginning to bite. Let's farm up. As Kenyans, not
true.
As individuals.
It's true.
We're winding up, Omari.
I'm finishing.
That is season 2, Monday
just
next
a minute.
week.
I walked myself inside here.
Yes.
I'll walk myself out when I want. We walked ourselves to the ICC. We are saying we are walking out. Why is anybody refusing us to walk out?
Thank you.
My parting shot.
30 seconds.
Yes, my parting shot is this. Are people out there discriminating against Africans? I'll answer the question. Is that a surprise? Everybody looks out for themselves. Let us not fail. Let us build our country. Let us not undermine our institutions. Let our strength not be in Museveni, a dictator defending us. Let our strength be in us having an independent, strong judiciary, strong presidency, executive, independent, and strong legislature.
Yes.
Let us stop undermining our institutions with petty corruption and petty personal interests, and then we blame the West. Well, the West is looking out for their interests. I'm not surprised.
I feel I need a disclaimer as we bring this to a close, that the views expressed on this set this morning do not in any way represent those of Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. They're those held by the individual gentlemen that we have on this set. this morning. But it has been a pleasure having your company throughout the show. I'm told Wycliffe Gori is standing by somewhere around as we bring this to a close. Thank you so much. But just free consultancy to the government, you need a communications office that is really doing stuff for you. And thank you for that handshake. It was much needed. Asante sana. And we continue watching the show. We catch up later. Good morning, Kenya. Enjoy what is left of your day, and God bless you all. My name is Samuel Njoroge.